let's go to our questions. Well, Tim, as you know, you're running against Jim Zecca, and I asked you both to ask a question of one another, and his question was, why did you join the Democrat Party?
Sure, fair enough. Well, I was originally a Republican. I left the Republican Party, I believe, in 2011 and joined the Independence Party because I felt that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party weren't much different, especially in Oneida County. There was a lot of cross-endorsing, I guess, for folks. I was independence, and I was very happily independence for quite a few years until, again, the governor at the time, Governor Cuomo, did away with that ability to be on the independence line because the Independence Party line would no longer be on the New York State ballot. So I had to make a decision. The Republican powers that be at the counties were like, hey, he'll come to us now. The Democrats were very, very good to me throughout the process, very supportive of myself. The county Democratic chairman was very supportive of myself, very helpful. And I felt as though that I owed them. I felt as though that the difference between a Republican and a Democrat on a local level is minimal at best, especially any sort of centrist. I mean, I think you can look at, I always tell people, I always look at the bell curve, and the bell curve starts out here where most of the area is. And then you get out to these fringe areas, which is the far left and the far right, which is kind of thought of as a little less than desirable. I would consider myself a centrist right in the middle. I espouse Republican ideas. I espouse Democratic ideas. I don't think you could be mayor for 7.5 years.
Well, I got two comments about that.
Without being, somewhat of a Democrat also, even though you were a Republican mayor.
I got the same problem with switching parties that I do with Jim Zecca. Certainly you guys, if you have something alike, that's probably it. You've been just about every party there is. I understand your point about on a local level maybe not being much different, but the question is, you're a Democrat. I don't see you having the same views as the state and national Democratic Party, and as a matter of fact, I don't even see you having the same views with Celeste Friend, who's running for mayor. And by the way, are you endorsing her?
I'm not endorsing anyone for mayor, no.
Oh, okay.
Nope. So,
I mean, as I say, I see you as a centrist, not as.
Sure. Let me say this. Also, through the years now, we've gone Republican and the conservative lines have kind of lined up.
Right.
And the Democrat and Working Families Party lines have kind of lined up. Interestingly, through the years, the Conservative Party will tell you that if you've ever screened for or gotten the endorsement from the Working Families Party, they're not going to talk to you at all.
Okay.
And rightfully so. I think the Working Families Party is diametrically opposed to the Conservative Party. That being said, I screened for the Conservative Party, and locally, I won that endorsement. It was brought back to the powers that be on the countywide basis, and not even in Oneida County, but in a different county, that said, no, you're going to primary for it, which is kind of unheard of. Interestingly, I've never gotten the Working Families Party endorsement, nor have I ever asked for the Working Families Party.
Right, so you didn't interview for that?
Never.
Okay.
Not my entire political career. Interestingly, Jim Zecca, 3 times, screened for and got the Working Families Party endorsement back when he was a Democrat in the 2000s. Interestingly, Jim Zecca also, as an Independence Party member back in 1999, endorsed both myself and Ed Hanna for the Independence Party line that when we were running for mayor and common council president back then. I've never endorsed Jim Zecca for anything. So, as we look at these lines that are blurred, and I agree with you, I think that that's something. The only difference between he and I is that I've won in every party that I've been in. I've won as a Republican, I've won as an Independent, and now I've won as a Democrat.
Why aren't you endorsing in the mayoral race? Is that just because you don't want to get the ire of Democrats? Because I know you don't support Friend. I mean, as I say, your views and her views obviously don't line up.
No. Look, I have concerns. I had concerns with the downtown Utica realignment on the street.
Right.
That's a concern.
That was a debacle, wasn't it?
To be something that she was very much in favor of, and I actually heard her one time say that she wanted to bring that right up to the New Hartford line.
Correct.
Which I think would be absolutely horrific.
Right.
I believe...
I don't think you agree with her on taxes either.
I believe that a city should have a wide thoroughfare going through it. I believe that what makes a city is a nice wide 4-lane road. I don't agree with her on dismantling the Utica Fire Department ambulance service. That was something that I put in place back when I did it. I think our thoughts vary widely on public safety, actually. So, you know, yeah, these are places that her and I diverge considerably, and so.
So why not endorse another candidate?
It's a possibility.
Okay, so you're not leaving it out of the realm of possibility. Now, let's get to your question about Jim Zecca. I thought it was a very interesting question, frankly, one that I probably wouldn't have known to ask. So I appreciate that. And basically your question was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you had the feeling that Jim Zecca has never really addressed how he's going to lower taxes. And so tell me why you asked the question, and then hopefully you've got answers as to how you can lower taxes.
Well, to look at lowering taxes, I will say this: the county right now is in, like every other organization, a lot of trouble with employment. And our only answer has been to throw money at it, because we don't know what else we can really do to entice people to stay working. At our county jail, for example, we're about 80 positions short. 80 positions short of a job that starts at over $50,000 a year, at a job that overtime comes in at 2.5 the regular rate. Overtime on the weekends comes in now 3.5 times.
Right.
So we've thrown money at this. You know what's happening? People aren't coming to work still. People are quitting the job still because they just have that opportunity to do that now. We're throwing money now in raising the salaries of the social service workers who we had a difficult time retaining through the years. We right now have 17 911 dispatchers with 52 positions. That means we've got 35 open positions. And you saw last week where we're starting to look at some consolidation in Herkimer County on the 911 dispatch center, which is
people always talk about consolidation, but sometimes they actually do it.
I think this one might actually happen. So I think that's exciting because then we're going to look at a lot of things that we could do along with Herkimer County in the future that might help and might help both the areas and keep the area strong. But
so how are my taxes going to be lower?
I'm not the one saying that I'm going to lower your taxes. Jim Zecca's the one saying.
You're just calling him out.
I'm calling him out because he says I'm going to lower your taxes, yet still doesn't say how he's going to do it. You know, so we are woefully short in a lot of these sectors. Whether we can't find people to work at the DPW, we can't find people to work again at the jail, at the dispatch center, in the actual sheriff's office itself, and driving and the road patrol. You know, as we look at people in the again social services sector, you know, the engineering department, the IT department, these are all jobs that if you look back 10 or 15 years ago, people would have killed for these jobs. They'd have lined up. We'd have filled up. We'd have filled up rooms of people taking civil service tests for this. It's not the case.
And as you say, it's not salary or benefits. So how do we get the people?
It's not the salary, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. But the only thing we can do, like I say, is we can start to look toward consolidation with other places that are having the exact same problems and issues that we're having, because that way we can start to take some of the employees and merge the departments together. The other thing we're having an issue with, and this is true all the area, is ambulance service. And if we look at, the city of Utica has the ambulance service that comes in through the fire department. So people who want to be on that fire department as a job will work that ambulance service. That's a good model for us. Other places outside the area are not having as much luck finding people to work their ambulances. They're out actually looking at, the reimbursement right now, trying to do things. Government does things because it's unaffordable for the private sector to do it. When someone says, oh, we need a development here, but no developer will put these roads in, well, government should then put the roads in, because those taxes will come in perpetuity.
It's sort of the but-for clause, right?
Yeah, but for the ability to do this. So those taxes will come in perpetuity. And 50 years in the life of a city or a county is nothing. So when those taxes start to come in, then you start to get that money back a little bit at a time. That's why we have these capital investments and these capital improvements that we look at in all these different places.
Well, what role should Oneida County government play in the life of a Utican?
Well, I think it's incumbent upon all government to make people's lives better. That being said, obviously, Oneida County provides the social services by state mandate that we provide to people who cannot afford to live otherwise. Oneida County goes through the state getting grants, and recently we'll be voting on a grant this week at the next meeting about doing homeless outreach to try to get some of the homeless people off the street, especially as we start to head toward winter as well.
Yep, huge problem.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem not only in Utica, it's a huge problem everywhere. No matter what city you go to now, you see this. So this is how we're trying to make people's lives better. If you look at bringing business into the area, and whether it's utilizing Edge and Chip Fab, which was a lot of years in coming, and believe me, I was as vocal about that and the fact that it might not happen or probably would never happen as anybody was. But now we see it with Wolfspeed here, and I think that that's something that's exciting.
Well, but Tim, I got to stop you there because I'm glad that Wolfspeed's here.
Yep.
But it really wasn't the fab that they said was coming, because what they're talking about is a whole, not quite micron size, but something in between Wolfspeed and a micron. We don't have that yet.
No,
and may never have it.
We have the wafer, which is being utilized by Volkswagen, Mercedes, Volvo,
right,
and vehicles like that. So as long as they continue to push toward these electric cars, you're going to start to see that start to take.
Yeah, because of the silicon carbide.
They've even talked about a second fab at that site already. So these are things that are being bandied about.
Well, I hope that's the case, but you can understand why I'm a little skeptical about that, because of what we've been promised for how many decades now?
Sure, but I know a friend of my son's who went to school with them, went to college, and got his engineering degree, came back and is working at that Wolfspeed factory right now. And this is a job that he would not be here otherwise. He'd be in Boston, he'd be in New York, he'd be in somewhere other than Utica, New York, if it was not for that plant. So I can't say that I'm very happy with the way that's gone. I can say that.
Now, are you in favor of term limits?
Yes, I am. Matter of fact, I have put in legislation to the chairman, which is the way you do it. You put in legislation to the chairman of the board. He decides whether or not to bring that to the board, drop it down to the board. It has to stay with him for a certain period of time, and then we can vote to pull it out, and with a 2/3 vote of the legislature, we can then put the term limit question to the board. So we're in the process of it. I started it, and we'll see where it goes.
Depends on Republicans, though, right?
Depends on Republicans.
And what's your thought? Do you think it'll pass?
I don't think it will.
No.
I don't think it will.
I share your sentiment.
I don't think it'll get to the floor. I don't think I'll get the 2/3 votes to get it to the floor.
Let's talk about public safety. We're recording this on the 12th of September, and over the weekend, of course, the community was shocked by the shooting at a Proctor football game. Not the first time they've had problems at Proctor, but let's talk about public safety in general. What do you think are some, and I think maybe we could roll homelessness in there as well, because I think they're part of the same problems. So what is your thoughts about how we can beef up public safety so that we don't have incidents like this? And I guess I'll pose the question. Mayor Palmieri recently said, I'm paraphrasing, well, this is never going to happen in my city. Well, my response to the mayor would be, it's been happening for a long time. There's been a lot of violence and gangs and so on and so forth.
You know, look, obviously, public safety is extremely important, number one. And I don't think anybody would say anything different than public safety is expensive. Public safety is extremely expensive.
Biggest part of the Utica budget.
Biggest part of the Utica budget, always has been. And some may say they're a very expensive insurance policy. But let's see some of the things we're dealing with now that I wasn't dealing with as mayor back up until the year 2008. Is that Governor Cuomo put in forth and being reinforced by now Governor Hochul, raised the age.
Right.
So as a 16, 17, 18-year-old now, you cannot be, or you
once again, those Democrats I was talking about.
You should not be tried as an adult. And what that's become, in my opinion, is a recruitment video for gangs. Because now you can say, hey, little guy, come on with us. Get in the car and let's ride around for a while. And
Right.
when you get pulled over, hold my gun, hold my knife, hold my
Drugs,
hold whatever. And this person who's 16 or 17 years old is not going to get in much trouble for that because they're of age, not of age to get in trouble for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, thanks, you kept your mouth shut, now you're one of us. Should a 16-year-old have a gun? I'm sure he didn't have a permit for it. Let's just start with that.
Right.
So all these gun laws that we're talking about are absolutely ludicrous.
Not much hunting with a handgun.
Not much hunting with a handgun, although it is probably not a bad idea to have a handgun with you when you do hunt. Look, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I believe that. I believe it shall not be infringed upon. And this is something that...
Do you think if more people were allowed to have guns and more people had guns at events like this, that we'd actually be safer because maybe somebody could have took that kid out?
You know, I'd hate to think... Here's the thing I always think about, is that when some of these kids are buying guns, they're buying guns that are taken from somebody's house or stolen from someplace else or brought in over the borders, things like that. What they ought to be stealing is ammo, so they can go somewhere and learn how to shoot better, because what they're doing is you're putting people in peril behind you. The laws and the rules about buying only so much ammunition are terrible, because the reality is, how do you improve your shooting? You shoot. You shoot through ammunition. You go through box after box after box of ammunition somewhere in a range where it's safe. That being said, if you cannot get your hands on that ammunition, you are going to be an unskilled shooter, and any time that you have an issue where you might have to draw your weapon and shoot somebody or shoot towards somebody, you're going to put whoever's behind them in peril as well. It's scary.
Let's talk a little bit about the migrants, because this is another Democrat administration of Biden, federal, and state Democrats, not only downstate, but the governor, and the mayor of New York, also a Democrat. And as I say, this is why I don't see your views lining up with those types of people. I bet you're not in favor of bringing migrants wholesale up to Oneida County.
But don't you think that no matter what party you are, you should be able to vote with the other side?
Yes.
Because that's what makes us do things. The fact that just because there's a designation at the end of your name, you have to vote that way. Don't you think that's what's wrong with this country?
Yes, absolutely.
So, no, I'm not in favor of the migrants coming in. I think it's a big mistake. I think it's a big mistake that getting over the border to begin with. I think the wall should have been finished. I think that they're being unvetted. They're coming through unvetted.
We know that terrorists are coming through.
Terrorists have come through, and I think the asylum process is being maligned and used completely against our own best interests. And
so you must be satisfied with what Paseni's done so far about the issue.
yeah, I mean, he's trying. He's
Right.
he's aware of it. He's trying, and it's something that we can all do, and we can all continue to work on and see what's going on. And I've talked to Pasenti about the concerns of having some sort of migrant shelter put here, and I don't want it. I could say that probably the majority of the people here wouldn't want it. I keep a keen eye on what's going on Staten Island. I think it's interesting what's happening there with the former school and such. And I don't know who really would want this going on in their area. We've had, and Utica's been extremely welcoming of a migrant community
Absolutely.
that have come into this country legally, come into this country using all of the laws that
Properly
we allow,
vetted.
gone through the citizenship process for the most part, the great majority of them, and I don't have an issue with that. I think that's everyone's right and everyone's dream to be here and be an American and contribute to the American way of life. That being said, if we were to get even 100 more migrants here, it would stretch our social services so far that we would all feel the pain of that.
I'm going to use the migrants as a segue to get to probably one of the most important issues in this district, and that's St. Elizabeth's Hospital. Because as you know, there's been some talk, once that hospital is vacant, that somebody downstate is going to say, hey, there's a you know, a place with a lot of rooms and all. Why not bring these people into St. Elizabeth's? So address that, but I think you've addressed that. But let's go to the St. Elizabeth's in general. And I like your idea. You've come the closest to what I think that should be, you know, redeveloped as. I think it should not be just 40 private homes.
No.
I think it should be, and Galimi has something close to this, you know, like UCA was developed into condos. Have that in association with some kind of assisted living facility, because let's remember that the nursing school is still going to be there.
Absolutely.
So I think your views come the closest. So can you tell our audience what's that all about?
Well, first off, the main hospital should be leveled, and all the buildings, including the garage, should be leveled as well. That'll clear up a nice 18-plus acre parcel that we'll take, and we'll be able to redevelop that. Now, I envision a gated community, 55 plus. They'll have maybe one entrance, one exit. We'll have security.
We may be there soon, Tim.
Hey, I'm looking for myself here. But what that'll do is, you know, if you look around these parts of the area, whether it's Ballantyne Bray, Bonnie Bray, Gear Ave, Ferris Ave, Proctor Boulevard, even up through here, you have a lot of these older colonial-style homes, 2 stories, and people are trying to age out of them. They love the neighborhood, they're familiar with the neighborhood, and some of these people are still pretty active, but they just can't keep going up and down these stairs. Some of these people are still fairly active, but they just may need a little help. Some of these people may be, you know, having, you know, even myself some days, I mean, just, you know, you start to think, and you go, oh, what was I just thinking about? And you go forward on that. So, you know, it's meds and things like that. I see a series of cul-de-sacs, again, the roads and infrastructure put in by the city in conjunction with Oneida County, series of cul-de-sacs, and whether it's townhomes, whether it's like single-family patio homes, not unlike you see down at the end of Edgewood Road. It isn't huge, maybe 1,200 to 1,400 square foot. Townhome, maybe 1,000, 1,100 square foot. And then in the center of these cul-de-sacs, you have a pod where those nursing students would be, earn some extra money, and they'll be able to go over and make sure someone is good in the morning, and they've eaten, and they've taken their meds, and they've done all the things they're supposed to do, and coming back and forth. And as they start to grow and they get older, and perhaps, you know, lose some of their independence, then, you know, further back into the lot, we could have that type of, not a full-on skilled nursing facility, but just independent living,
assisted living,
which is, you know, I have to say that I have great experience with this. My mother went through it in assisted living. It was a great way for her to really kind of sunset her life, because she still had some independence. She still was able to have people over, friends over, still able to have dinner parties, things like that. But at the same time, you know, she had someone watching over her when things started to, you know, when there was a flu outbreak or something like that. Thank goodness you know, she had passed away before COVID, because she would have gone crazy not seeing her kids and her kids, things like that. But, you know, there's a flu outbreak. They were very, they took all the proper precautions, let's say that. And you know, would she have done that in other ways? Probably not, and it wouldn't have worked out as well. So things like that, I think it's going to be extremely important. We are an older community. We continue to be an older community. Many of the younger people have moved away, of course, but the older people have stayed here. And I think that this is something, this gives an opportunity for some of those younger people to come back, buy into these communities, buy into these neighborhoods, and these older homes, make them their own, and still give the people who...
Well, also, I think that the condos should be a mix between... the only disagreement I have with you is I think the condos should be a mix of older people and young professionals, the ones that we want to attract, the ones that usually go downtown into a loft or something. It'd be nice for me, from my point of view, to have a mixed community. How would you feel about that? Would you be totally against that, or?
I wouldn't be totally against it, because, you know, I mean...
because look at the Uptown. They would have almost a mini downtown, because the Uptown, you'd have the theater, you'd have the grocery store, the drug stores, so on and so forth.
Don't forget this, when the hospital does make its final move and the medical office building is completed downtown, you're going to start to empty out some buildings along Genesee Street. And
that's what I fear.
Further than that, you know, as Lady of Lourdes School becomes less and less populated, and they start to move up toward the Notre Dame campus, you know, we may have an opportunity to have this same conversation all over again.
Right.
about that elementary school.
All right, let's wrap up with this question. What would you like to see from your minority leader? What is the county and the Piceni administration doing wrong? What is your biggest gripe you have with them? And what do you think the Oneida County Legislature should do, one or two things to directly help the citizens of your district?
Well, the big thing, and again we've just talked about, is St. Elizabeth's Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That is by far the #1 issue that we're facing.
Seems to be what everybody's concerned with, yeah.
Now we have, and we continue to, work on the water issues downstream, down in the Sequoia Creek Basin, things like that, that will hopefully and continue.
That's probably number 2, right?
I'm sure that's number 2.
Yeah.
But we haven't thought about it in a while because some of these things kind of go away in the back of our minds. Because
well, and I neglected even to bring it up, so I appreciate that.
So as we start to look at that in the Sequoia Creek Basin, and we clear out further downstream to keep that water flowing so it doesn't roll over the top of our neighborhoods, that's extremely important also. And the county is continuing to monitor that, continue to do things further downstream. We've worked on things upstream, worked on things in conjunction with the city.
But you know where Brookline meets Sunnyside?
Mm-hmm.
What's happened over the years is there's been all these rocks built up, and now the stream bed is probably like 3 feet higher than it was. Now, I agree, they say, oh, well, we can't go and dig deeper or whatever because you're just increasing the rate of the flow and all. But we're not asking them to do that. We're just asking them to get it back to what it naturally was. But they're not doing that.
Unfortunately, New York State DEC is extremely difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Never been easy to work with, always been difficult to work with. So they will tell you that, once something's in that creek, it's there. And, if you look down just past Cupolo's garage, as you're looking westbound from Genesee Street, you can't tell me that doesn't impede the flow.
Right.
But we can't get in there.
There's like an island there.
There's like an island there. Look like Gilligan's on that island.
Treasure Island.
So you can't tell me that doesn't impede the flow. I'm sure it does. And that's a concern also. That's a concern also. So, those...
So St. Elizabeth's, flooding, is there anything else that's really a big issue that you're saying that, Republicans you should get on board with? Term limits is one.
Term limits is one, yeah, and I don't think we're going to see that happen. I think that the sewer tax issue, as we've done the sewer treatment plant as told to us by New York State, I voted against all the times that those sewer tax increases have been put in place. They had the big 18.5%, and not only did I go against that and vote against that, I voted against. I said there should have been more money taken out of contingency in order to do that. I had also 9 other legislators came along with me. And did that along with me. And you know what? I felt pretty good about that. The trouble is that the majority of that county legislature is off of that sewer district.
Right.
So they're not on the sewer. So they don't feel that pain when they go and they pay their water bill. Or they're on a well or what have you. So
and the bills have gone up astronomically.
The bills have gone up, and most of that is sewer tax, whether it's city or county sewer tax. The water bill is one thing. The water bill is probably about a third or a quarter of your bill now compared to the taxes that are placed on that. And that's, again, due to the water treatment plant that's gone on way down the end of Wirtz and Leyland Ave, where that facility's been put in place. It started out as an $80 million project back in the mid-2000s, and now it's like a $325 million project. Because all the things that get added on to it by the state through the years. And it's unfair. It's unfair to the community.
I do have one last question, and this will be the last question for you. Piceni, every budget year, keeps telling me that Oneida County taxes are not going up.
Correct.
Yet when you and I open our Oneida County tax bill in the city of Utica, what do we see?
It's an increase.
Can you explain why that is?
I can.
And if we could do anything about it.
For several years before I got there, okay, and they didn't talk about this. This was voted on back in 2011, I believe. What they did is any student from any particular area that goes to MVCC or any SUNY school, the home county pays a portion of that tuition. That's why the tuition's cheap, because the home county pays a portion of the tuition. So, because we're a city of Utica, we had the most people that are going there. So they started out, the county was paying that whole freight for them at that time. And what they did is, starting in 2011, they started charging back the communities of where these kids came from. So the city of Utica started, I think, at 25%, then it went up to 50%, 75%, then 100% paying the freight for these kids through their taxes. That's one thing that caused the taxes to go up even though we were at 0%. Second thing we have is something that would be extremely unpopular but probably has to be done, and this is one of those city issues that we have to deal with, is city has to be reassessed. We haven't reassessed since probably 1997. And you know as well as I know, the property values in a lot of places have changed.
That's going to be a fight, isn't it?
You know, not necessarily. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if you were to just go through and wave a wand over the city of Utica and say, everyone's assessment is today doubled, and then chop every one of those taxes, the county, the city, and the school taxes in half, you'd pay the same, but your assessment would now be far closer to where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think that, you know, as you look at things like that, there are certainly possibilities to do those things. But there's going to need to be a reassessment. And yeah, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be an argument. But what happens is we're at an equalization rate, I think, at 60% or below right now, which means that our properties are valued 60% of the market rate of what they would be. And I think it's probably even less than that when you really start to go through it. So because of that, as our community grows, it doesn't offset that county tax as much. The county taxes, it needs a certain amount over the entire Oneida County. So some of these communities that grow, that don't have these types of tax problems, and they do like arm's length transactions, smaller communities, if you buy a house and you bought it, it was assessed for $80,000 when you bought it for $125,000, well then it got reassessed for $125,000. It's that arm's length transaction. They can do that. We have so many real estate transactions, we really can't do that here in the city of Utica. So with that, that would help drastically in that what we see every year, which is the problem of the 0% tax making your taxes go up.
Okay, Tim, tell people how they can learn more about your campaign.
Well, the best bet to do is just contact me directly. It's 315-534-5254. Give me a call, ask me a question, come sit and meet with me, whatever you want. I'm a pretty accessible person.
Do you have a Facebook or a website or anything?
I don't have a Facebook, no. I don't have a website.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to be out. And certainly
I see you finally put your signs up. Your signs are ready to go?
Put the signs up, ready to go, and I'll be out knocking on doors, and I'll be mailing out things to people, things like that, so you'll see kind of what I stand.
Now, one last request. You told me that you're going to be open to debating someone anytime, anywhere. Would you like to make that challenge?
I'll make that challenge. I'll be doing the WWE.
That's right.
I'll make that challenge, Mean Gene. No, certainly, you know, I look forward to, you know, the only, I always look at, when people run unopposed, the only people that lose are the citizens that they are representing, because you don't get to hear the opposing ideas. And when someone doesn't willing to debate and talk about those opposing ideas face to face, so they can be answered and asked in the same question, I think you lose something also. So I would like to debate my opponent, Jim Zecca, on the radio, at the South Utica Neighborhood Association meeting, on this forum, on any forum, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Well, Tim, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.